right, Miss Wrecking Belle, welcome to the Nitty Gritty interview. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well, thank you.
I think you answered that better the second time than I asked you the first time. So obviously, listening to you as a poet has been fantastic. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how these passions, the interviewing, wanting to get artists, being a poet, and then amongst the other things that you do, tell us about yourself.
Oh man. Well, I think for a long time, I've created my whole life since I was a kid. Whether it's, I don't know, shapes in the sand, or whether it's tearing apart the yard so that it, flows better. I don't know. There's always some project, there's always something that I think, I'm going to do that, and then I just do it. There's not a whole lot of thought that goes into it. But I think as I got older, I thought to create was to conform to a certain standard or a certain type of anything. And so I thought, well, I can never be that, so I'm just going to stop. And then I stopped creating for a really long time. And it made me really miserable. And it wasn't until I think I went to the first... I took another friend to BWOMs because they were a performer, and I was there, and I thought, I remember these days. This was a lot of fun. So I started again, but as soon as I opened that little, you know how it goes. You open that tiny little crack, and then everything kind of comes flooding through. So I think I deviated from the initial question, but I guess not, because that's who I am as an artist. Is I'll have these rushes and these spurts where it's not even a piece that I have in mind, it's a feeling that I need to process. Not even like a feeling that I need anybody to see. It's, I have this big, huge thing in my chest and in my heart and in my mind, and if I don't get it out, I'm gonna go nuts. I just don't know what that's gonna look like. And it might be clay, or it might be writing, or it might be a project I do at work, or it might be, you know what I mean? Like, it could be endless. But I think that's also where the writing comes in, because it almost seems like it's part of it. If you were to look at the extent of my life, each one of my pieces is just a building block in that. Does that make sense? And so there are all these different little facets of me. And I think that's where I think that comes off in my writing, because as I go back and reread it, it almost seems disjointed, like it was an intrusive thought. Like I was in the middle of saying something, the way I talk in person, where I'll have a thought and I'll say it out loud, but nobody else knew what I was saying. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, see. And that's my art. And I think that's funny too, because sometimes my pieces, in retrospect, I'll go back and reread them and think there was so much context that nobody knows anything about. So it's interesting, and I want to know what interpretations they got from that. And I think that's where talking to artists came from, is if these little pieces of me are so disjointed, and even I can't even remember where it fit into that thought process, I wonder what it looks like to somebody else. I wonder what they're getting from it. I wonder, we're humans, and it's part of the human experience that everything we do has a ripple effect. And sometimes I wonder what the writing or what the pieces do. And so instead of just thinking about it, do it, ask and just ask. And so it's opened the door to all these conversations. And when we started working together, that I remember that's one of the conversations of even just the title, the nitty gritty, like getting to the down and dirty, getting past the superficial, because nobody does that, because we're all scared of that. And being able to talk to artists, hear their life and hear their life story, and look at their poetry, as a parallel, and go, wow, now I can feel that even more. So once they've talked about themselves and they read the poetry, like, it's brought me to tears on screen, because now I can empathize. Before, it was just words that I was interpreting with my experiences, but now you've given me your words with your experiences. Oh, I'm gonna get all emotional right now. And so now it's like you're allowing me that little
comfortable vulnerability.
yes. You're allowing yourself to be vulnerable. You're allowing me to get to know you, and it's such an honor. It feels good when somebody cares about what you put into your pieces because you put so much into it. So, I mean, it is a little selfish too. It's a little bit like, I know that I feel good when people ask me about me. So I want you to feel good. I want you to feel that same love and this consideration that you get when somebody asks.
You know, I think you answered, and the same with the last interview, I think you answered about my next 4 questions. Because I was going to ask you, like, what inspires your creativity, influences your artistic style? Check. Describe your artistic process and how you bring ideas to life? Check. And, you know, but don't be sorry about it. That's just a great way of how we communicate, right? When we're poets, we're all about that expression. How can we express ourselves? What we express ourselves about, and how deep into our expression can we really go? So I find that it's very lethargic when you see somebody get on stage and they're not comfortable because of the way the audience is not engaging. But then you get an audience who is purposefully there for that poet or for the feeling of the poetry.
Yes.
And you have magic.
Yes.
You know, and people don't experience that secondhand embarrassment. If anything, they experience that secondhand emotion. What is it that you do to engage with the audience? Like, how does the audience interpret your performances, your exhibitions? What engagement, or I should say, what conversation between actions happen when you're on stage versus them sitting there listening?
That's a good question. Or at least initially, the energy I took was, because I get nervous on stage. I shake, and like, I don't know if anybody can see it. They can probably see it, but I shake. My breathing gets really, really shaky. But initially, I would take the energy that I used to have from teaching. But because I taught in behavioral programs for so long, you have to be on every day. Where, they don't mean to, but the kids will take advantage of any drop in energy. And again, not in the negative, but they will. And so I feel like I have to use almost my educator persona of stay engaged, stay on top of it, engage, talk to the audience, and it's almost this accidental thing. And so I do I've written even pieces that are interactive, where the poem doesn't exist without the interaction of the crowd. And so I think that's where it started, of needing to be on and needing to be on my game and needing to respect the crowd and read the room. And I guess it kind of sort of transformed into the same thing, but it's almost giving permission of, look, I say weird shit. I do weird shit. You can too, and it feels really good. You know what I mean? You can take your neurodivergence and you can wear it like a badge, like it's part of it, because it is part of you. You can take your intrusive thoughts. You can take those things that we hide and that we push away, and you can wear them proudly so that nobody has them to use against you. You know what I mean? So I guess that's where it's come from, or where it's going now, is what it feels like.
So how do you handle setbacks as they come around as an artist? As what we do is 100% volunteer, right? Mm-hmm. We volunteer to put ourselves in these situations. At the same time, we have things that are expected of us, whether it's responsibilities of a parent, of a spouse, of an employee versus employer. How do you, when you have a setback as an artist, work through it with all these different aspects of your life that you still have to maintain?
I don't know. I'm still trying to figure that out, I guess. Because I've let a lot go, but it's also been the busiest I've ever been, ironically. Because I'm trying to let go of things that aren't for me and recognize. And I don't know. I guess my answer to your question is I don't know, because I've never done this before. I've never tried to set boundaries and give my all into fewer things instead of taking on so much and giving each one half the energy that it deserves, Yeah,
I had to learn to say no. a long time ago.
Yeah.
And trust me when I say the power that you get in saying no is so incredibly soothing.
Yeah.
Because people fear, well, if I say no, they're not going to like me, or this is going to create a bad situation. And when you stop caring about that, it's a great thing. But I also want to acknowledge the fact that you're in this place I like to call the unknown, right? It's where you go from a place of comfortability and you have a goal that you want to get to, and you have to go through this, I don't know what's going on and how to get through it. You kind of figure yourself out. And on the other side of that, you have reward, right? You earn or gain something, and you have to also watch out for the consequence. I went through all of this. Did I lose a friend? Did I lose communication? Did I lose an opportunity, right? So as you go through all of these different things, what I love about us as poets in our community is that every struggle is material for us to perform.
I like that you mention risk versus reward, because I think that's where my decisions are coming from right now. I would like to grow my craft somewhere. And so when we get to this place of being grown, so I like the theme of this month too, Grown and Sexy, because to be grown is to suddenly realize I'm older, my energy level is lower, I got kids, I have career, I have to make sacrifices, even if it's things that I absolutely don't want to let go of. And that's the hardest part of all of this, is with a finite amount of time and a finite, you know what I mean? So I guess that's how I'm trying to handle setbacks. And I love that you mentioned risk versus reward, because when you can reduce the number of avenues you're trying to give your all to, then the reward at you getting better and growing in that thing grows exponentially, rather than when your attention is torn and you're growing at smaller increments.
Now, I used to look at it like only as risk versus reward, and then my experience elevated it from instant validation to delayed gratification. Mm-hmm. You know, like, am I trying to get validated right now, or am I trying to be happy with the work I've put in? You know, and the risk versus reward, it's prevalent, but it's a very, very primal first-hand reaction.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But when you start thinking about the validation that you put in for that risk versus the gratification as a reward, it gives you a perspective of, let me look above the muck, let me look above the sheep, let me look out for the wolf, but also, damn, I'm the shepherd. You know, like, you forget you're leading the way. And in this case, I look at what you're doing, when we really started working close together right when you were going through that really weird transition of the house and the job, and you're trying to figure all these things out, and yet here you are talking about the successes. What a trial and tribulation, from not just selling a home, but to owning your own space. I have to ask, because you mentioned the Grown and Sexy, and this is so appropriate, especially in your opinion, what can people expect on August 30th from your performance?
There's a couple of directions that I can go. I was thinking of, 10 minutes seems like a long time, but it is not a long time.
It's not at all.
And so I was thinking of maybe going the direction of taking some of the more foundational pieces that I have had for years and show the growth of those. So the way that my writing has grown, so a piece from forever ago, you know what I mean? So kind of tier the growing. But then I also thought, I've written a lot in this, since I let that dam break, I've written a lot of new stuff that is indicative of how much I've grown. And I thought maybe I should just focus on where I am now, because I'm never gonna stop processing, never stop growing, but I feel like there's blocks of my youth that I can go, okay, I think I've come to terms and laid those to rest, and now I can just kind of focus on this. You know what I mean?
No, we definitely have to do another interview, because you're talking about something right there where, I mean, childhood experiences, when we put it to poetry as an adult, where we can filter it through the maturity and have the ability to explain ourselves the way we couldn't when we were kids. I think that's a whole other conversation, but a great glimpse into what people can expect. So, Miss Belle, thank you so much for your time and sitting with the nitty gritty and getting ready for this one. Is there anything that you would like to tell people before we get out of here?
If you like to dance, we are trying to put together, we started Eat the Strawberries, and I'm looking for people who are committed to growing with this. If you are interested, please message either me, wrecking.belle, or the Eat the Strawberries page. Right now we're working on chair pieces, a couple of group pieces, and what I'm looking for is people willing to come up with your own piece that describes your life and coming into it as your own segment. So please, if you're interested in that, or it even sounds interesting, our next meeting is going to be August 24th, Saturday at 1 o'clock at Firehouse Fitness Studios. It's a pole and it's a beautiful boutique gym that is all about empowerment and using your body in new ways. We're going to be practicing there. When I say practice, I mean sit around, drink a glass of wine, and come up with our dance routines. So if that sounds interesting to you, message me and we'll go from there.
And we'll put all of the information in the bio below so you can look it up there. So with that being said, again, it's Belle, it's Melody. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
And we're out of here.
Where talent thrives and comes alive. Get.